I think the biggest takeaway that I have from What's Dead and Gone is that it was the first time that I like put together a project instead of like just piecing together songs that were kind of just going viral. Because that's kind of
Mhm.
how That's Just Myself happened. It was just like I was posting them, and then if they did well, there was more push to put them out. Whereas What's Dead and Gone, I wrote them over like a period of, I think, like a whole year. Um, and like pieced them together myself in my own time. Like it was like a group of songs that I had, and I pulled them out of this group and decided that they went well together and I wanted them to tell a story. And I'd never done that before. And I'd never even like considered music like that because I'd always just written songs.
Bringing it backward.
How's it going? I'm Adam.
Good. Nice to meet you. I'm Liang.
Hi, Liang. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am like literally just had dinner, so I feel very full, but I'm
Oh,
here.
that's good. That's very good. Where are you abouts in the world if you just had dinner?
I'm in London, so it's like 6:30 PM.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I'm in
Yeah.
Nashville. It's
Okay,
12:30.
cool. What time is it for you?
12:30 in the afternoon.
Great, cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to chat with you. This is about you and your journey in music. And we'll talk about the new record you put out and everything else you have going on. That's cool.
Sick. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I just had a look at like your podcast and it looks pretty sick.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
yeah, yeah, of course, anytime. Yeah, so I was kind of start off with your origin story. Whereabouts were you born and raised?
So it's kind of complicated. I basically moved around like every 2 to 5 years growing up, because of my dad's job. And so I've lived in quite a few different countries. But whenever someone asks me like where I'm from, I'm always like, oh, well, I'm half Chinese and half English. And then people are always like, oh no, sorry, I didn't mean like your ethnicity. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like that's what I always say. But yeah, so I like grew up around, lived in like 8 different countries.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, actually spent a bit of time in San Francisco in the US, so
Did
that
you
was fun.
really? Wow. I lived in
Yeah.
San Francisco for about 5 years as well.
Oh, no way. Sick.
Yeah.
Like it.
2009 to 14-ish.
Oh, okay, you were there just after me, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so
Actually,
you moved
no,
around were we
maybe
there
it
at
was
the
the
same
same
time?
time.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So were you born in England and then you just moved around a lot, or like where were you born at?
I was actually born in China.
Oh, you were born in China. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, in a little city called Qingdao. And yeah, we started moving from when I was like, I think like 6 months. I've only ever really moved. But yeah, now I'm based in the UK. And I always like used to come home to the Midlands in England. And also I used to go home back to China to see relatives. So China and England kind of like sit very like equal in like my homes, I guess. But I've
Yeah,
lived in many different places.
that's amazing. Was that hard growing up like that? I mean, you constantly make new friends, I would imagine. Not only like you're not moving cities within the same country, you're moving to a different
Yeah.
country, a whole different culture, lifestyle, and everything, I would imagine.
I think at the time I was just kind of like enjoying it and didn't really know anything else. Um, I do go to therapy now. So, like, we like talk about it a lot. So there's definitely some aftermath to be dealt with. But like I owe my entire character and my experience to it. So it makes me unique as a person. So I like do appreciate it so much. And also like giving me the opportunity to just experience so many different cultures and meet so many different people and like have such a love for the world. So and traveling. So I think I like really loved it all the time growing up. But there are things that weren't as easy, like yeah, making friends and trying to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, 8 places you'd probably start adjusting and making some friends, and then it's like, "Oh, we're leaving. We're going to a
Yeah.
different country now." You're like,
Yeah, literally.
"Oh." Well, as far as music goes, do you come from, like, a musical family at all or creative household?
Not at all. My parents like loved listening to music. And they were always like sharing music with me, especially my dad. Um, like always he was really into like the Eagles and Genesis and just all of that kind of like country and like dad rock kind of vibes.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I like grew up listening to that and but yeah, no, neither of them were in music. I never really saw myself like doing music. It was just something that I loved doing for myself, to be honest.
Mhm.
I started when I was like 11, I think. I always wrote songs. I always wrote from when I was really young and just like out of
Like
fun. And I
lyrics,
really,
like creative writing, like
yeah,
that?
loved
Okay.
poetry. I think it kind of started with poetry. And then I started watching, I don't know if you know Dodie Clark.
The
She
name
was
sounds familiar.
Yeah, she goes by Dodie now, that's her artist name, but she was on YouTube for a while in, like, 2016, and she was just, like, making, like, music in her bedroom, and I started to watch those videos, and I was like, "Whoa, you can literally just make songs in your room with, like, one instrument and your voice," and, that's kind of where it started. I kind of, like, took my love for writing and then picked up the ukulele first, and then decided that it was, like, too happy sounding. And then picked up the guitar, like, 4 years later, I think, when I was, like, 14, 15, and just kind of used it as, like, a vessel for my writing, really. Yeah,
Yeah,
so the
like, yeah,
writing
you
kind
used
of
it just to you just wanted to learn how to play the guitar just so you could write songs, it sounds like.
literally, yeah,
Yeah.
like, it was always, like, a vessel to, like, tell stories. Um And yeah, it was more just out of like my own mental processing. Like the moving was very turbulent. So I think it was like the only kind of consistent thing I had in my life that I felt like I had control over.
Mhm.
And I just kept writing. And then what happened? I think like COVID hit. I feel like this is like a lot of up and coming artists like story. There's always something to do with COVID.
Sure. I mean, a lot
But
of time to yourself inside, right? I mean,
yeah,
and if you're an artist,
yeah,
it's like, well, I guess I have nothing but time to write.
literally, yeah. And COVID hit when I was like first year of university, so I'd like just moved away
Oh,
from home.
man.
Yeah, and I was studying biology. I was like on track to do like a completely different thing, which I also love. But basically COVID hit and I had so much time and I couldn't get back to my family because they were living in a completely different country that had like shut their borders. And
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
so didn't see them for like 3 years, and it was just this, like, incredibly difficult time, and I just kept writing. It was, like, every day I wrote, and just about whatever I wanted to, and, just posted on TikTok, and people were, like, resonating with the lyrics, and I was quite lucky for that. Like, I found an audience quite quickly on there, and then that
Wow. Well, real quick, I'm just curious on this. So you were writing songs, but you weren't like putting them up online or like SoundCloud or anything like that prior to. It was just like you had these
no.
songs and you just go what on your do record a video on TikTok and post them, and people just started to engage with your content.
Literally, it was just me and I just set my phone up, like, somewhere, and then it was just me and an acoustic guitar and then whatever I'd written, like, an hour before. It was
Really?
very
Were they?
yeah, it was very, like,
Wow.
start to finish, that was the whole process, and then that was it.
What video, like, was there a moment or a video that you had put out that just started to really take off and you're like, whoa, like this is wild? Or was it kind of a slow build or
I remember the first original song because I think I started with original songs and then kind of did a lot of covers and
Mhm.
then moved back to original songs because I was like, "Wait, I don't wanna do covers." But I think the first original song that did well, it was quite, like, early on in my posting, and I just remember, like, just continuous, like, likes and comments coming in, and I was so confused. I was like, "This is so bizarre because I think it was just, like, a story I'd written and then just, like, put chords over, and it was quite fun. But I remember, like, just, like, kind of just, like, continuing to refresh and being so confused. It's like,
Yeah, you're like, is
why
this real?
people
Like, what's going on here?
yeah, and it was I don't know, because I used TikTok as, like, an archive. I always say that it was very much, like, kind of a journal. It was like a digital journal for me at the time, and I
Mhm.
never intended for it to, like, go viral or like to, like find an audience really. It was just so I could keep track of how much I was writing because it was the easiest way. It was like TikTok was the kind of, I don't know if it was the first app, but like one of the like best ones for the fact that you could literally just like film in app and then post it immediately. And
Mhm.
so because it was that easy, it was just like, oh well, I can just keep track of everything I'm writing. So this is fine. Um
Yeah, it wasn't even about like I'm gonna get a bunch of views and this is gonna it was
no,
just
I
like I
mean
just wanna keep track of the songs that I'm writing, and this is probably
literally, I think it's
the
like
cheapest,
pretty.
easiest way.
Yeah, literally. And I think it's pretty clear in my videos that it like isn't about the views because I'm literally just sat like in my bedroom wearing whatever, like looking like whatever and just singing.
Well, that's probably what resonates with people too, I feel like, with TikTok is like it's so real and raw. It's just, "Hey, I'm here with my guitar and I'm gonna play this
Yeah.
song and you can like it or don't like it. It doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me either
To
way."
this day, my like audience has like only really resonated the most with when it's completely authentic and genuine to like just me, which is
Mhm.
really nice, I think, for
That's
my project.
huge, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like, okay, now well, the video that did well was the one I spent 10 hours, like, making sure it's
Yeah.
perfect and editing and had all the perfect lighting, this and that and the other thing. It was no one cares about that. They just wanna
No.
see you doing what you do.
Yeah, anytime I've put up anything or, like, done any kind of, like, shoot or anything that, like, didn't feel like me, it did like, didn't doesn't hit with me and it doesn't hit with them, so I'm like, "Oh, sick." I don't have to do it.
That's so funny. I mean, that's
Mhm.
great though. Obviously, that's the easiest it's the hardest thing to do is be yourself and authentic, but once you figure it out, it's the easiest way to go. You don't have to really
Yeah. Yeah, for
think
sure.
too far out of it. But so you start doing well. It starts doing well on TikTok. Like that song you talked about. You said you wrote a song, like a story. Was that ever put out as a song? Like, did you put it out as a song later on, like on Spotify?
Mhm.
Like, because Santa Cruz is the first song I'm seeing on your Spotify.
Yeah, so it wasn't until, like, what, I think that was, like, 2019? It wasn't until 2022? Oh, no, 2020 was when I put Santa Cruz out, and I actually wrote that when I was, like, I think, like, 16, 17, and
Oh
put it out
wow.
when I was, like, 19. Um, and it was, like, one of the first songs I'd written that I kind of felt like I don't know, I'd put stuff up on YouTube, and
Hmm.
then I was living in this farmhouse with my older sister's husband, and, like, just it was, like, this really random scenario, and he was like, "Why don't you just put out music if, like, people are resonating with your music on TikTok?" He was like, "Why don't you just put it up?" And it was, like, such an impulsive decision one day. I remember I had the recording for ages or, like, the, like, track. I
Uh-huh.
didn't want to put it up, and then one day, I was just sat, like, in lockdown, and I was like, "Oh, may as well." Um, and that's when we released Santa Cruz in 2020. But, yeah, a lot of the stuff, like, even post Santa Cruz on TikTok never came out and will never come out.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was, like, 3 years of me kind of finding my writing style and understanding, like, what kind of stories I wanted to tell, how I wanted to tell them, and, like, also, like, what people liked hearing from me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think it was a lot of, like, trial and error, and I was also, like, writing songs in, like, so many different styles, which is great. Like, sometimes I'll, like, look through them and I'll be like, "Whoa, maybe I should try that again."
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, but yeah, a lot of them I think will just stay there, which is why, like, I'll never delete them because it's like a whole journey of mine, but
Yeah, that's really cool, especially to
Mhm.
save it, because a lot of people will go back and be like, "Oh, this doesn't sound like me anymore, so I'm gonna delete all these videos." But the fact that you
Yeah,
keep them up is really cool.
yeah.
Obviously, "Not a Love Song" is a massive song for you. Was that one that did well online, or did it I mean, on Spotify, or was it a viral moment on TikTok for you? Like, how does that song just start climbing to the numbers it has?
That one was basically I wrote it I'd, like, just signed to an indie, um, I think it was that year or, like yeah, within, like, 6 months of me writing that song, and we were trying to figure out kind of what was like my sound, what was going to be my release style, and like we wanted to put an EP out. And Not a Love Song, I wrote it and I was like, I really want to release it. And then I posted the acoustic version on TikTok, like I do like with all of my songs. And it did really resonate with people. It was the first one that kind of hit like, I don't know, I guess the kind of cusp of like being viral, I think.
Hmm.
Um, which was wild again, because it was just like, again, just like a normal video of me sat in my living room. Um, but the whole point of it was that like it was this love song that never said the word love, and also was like the weirdest ways you could kind of describe love.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really creative.
Thank you. And yeah, I think people liked knowing that and then hearing the song because I like explained it in the video and then went into the song. Um, but yeah, so we had like quite a bit of support around it already. And then it was a really interesting process, like producing it after the fact, even though we'd like already planned to release it. It did kind of really like speed up the process of it coming out. And it was
Yeah,
like this
because it was because it
scramble.
was viral. So they're like, okay, well, let's capitalize on this now while
Yeah.
everyone's into it.
Yeah, and there was like already a decision made that my sound was going to change. Like it was the first time that I wasn't putting out like a super acoustic stripped back song. Um and we had to figure that out in like 2 months. So
Yeah,
it
especially since the acoustic version was the one that people liked, right? I mean, it was
Mm.
the one that people heard.
Yeah, I was really scared. I remember being so scared to put out something that wasn't acoustic, even though all of me like wanted to. Like that's the
Mhm.
kind of music I listen to. I grew up listening to bands. I didn't really listen to like folk until after I was kind of put into folk like as a
Mhm.
genre, which is really interesting. Um but yeah, so I was like so sure that I wanted to do it to this song, but I didn't know how people were going to take it because it was going to sound completely different. Like it sounds so different. But people like responded a lot better than I thought they
Yeah, let's say
would.
6 million people have dug it. So,
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
so you said you got signed to an indie label right
Mhm.
before that. Like, how did you find the label? How did they find you? Was it all based off of what you're doing on TikTok?
It was they literally yeah, they found me on TikTok. They just reached out to me in my last year of uni, and I was in this like state of like this kind of transition state of deciding whether I was going to pursue music or if I was going to try and do like the 9 to 5 and then do music on the side. Um and I think it was actually like quite nice cuz I had like 6 months before have like receiving any word from the label. Um and I had decided that I was gonna work in a cafe in the town I was living in at the time, and I was just gonna give it my best go. I was already working at this cafe, and I loved the people there, and I was like, "I'm just gonna continue to work here and finish my degree, and then just work in this cafe, and then I'm gonna do music the whole time. I'm gonna, like, put everything into music. I'm gonna have so much free time. I don't have to write any more essays. I don't have to do any
Right.
more psychology."
Yeah, no more
Um
science.
yeah, because I wanted to make sure I saw that through, but it was taking up so much time. Um, and so I was kind of in this period where I was like telling my parents, I was like, "Okay, guys, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do music. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna figure it out." And like, there's like a lot of people behind me, so like, surely there's something I can do with it. Um, and then they reached out in like I think like the kind of second half of the year, and I'd finished uni at like September and signed like 3 months out of uni. So it was like very lucky timing for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like
Validating, right? Like, well, I guess this is what I'm gonna be doing.
yeah, it was like not too long of me being like, "Oh no, this is"
Yeah. Like,
um
am I making a mistake? It's like, no, well, I guess people like it, so let's do this.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. And then you put out that first EP with Letters to Myself, and that was with Not a Love Song on it and all those songs.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the Not a Love Song was the first one to kind of yeah, it was the first track to come out of it. Yeah.
And you put out this year, you've put out another EP,
Mhm.
What's Dead and Gone.
Yeah.
Tell me about that EP. Was that different writing that one? versus, I mean, because you already had a body workout, you were signed, and people knew who you were. Like going into that next release, was that a struggle? Was it different? Kind of tell me about
It
that.
was it was quite I felt more scared than I did with Letters to Myself. I think Letters to Myself was I think because it was the first time I was releasing music and also, like, I don't come from a music industry background, but I was,
Mhm.
like, quite naive and but in a good way because I didn't really have all the, like, knowledge that some people have, like, releasing music into this world. Um, and so I really was just kind of focused on, like, did I like the track? Did I not? Does it feel like me? Does it not right now? And that was,
Yeah.
like, it. That was all I kind of was considering. Because also, like, along with, like, being naive, like, there wasn't I don't know, I didn't have this, like, massive goal of making it really. Because I still kind of am in this headspace of, like, "Oh, if it works, it works. Like, I'll do it for as long as it makes me happy, but until then, you know, it's just me giving it my best go."
Yeah.
And, so Letters to Myself was, like, quite an experimental EP just in the sense that it took a lot of, like, my producer playing sounds to me and then me being like, "Oh, I don't really like that," but not really knowing what I didn't like about it because 'cause I'd never really listened to music in that way.
Mhm.
And then so I think What's Dead and Gone felt a lot scarier because it was the first time, at least in my head, I don't know if anyone else was thinking about it like this, but because it was the first time that I now like had the knowledge, I was like, "Oh no, well now I have to be good at using that knowledge." And I have
And you
to
had
like
an audience and everything else, right? And people like were
yeah,
had they like you probably built a bigger brand for yourself and a bigger audience with the release of that first EP, and then it's like, okay,
yeah,
because a lot of people I've heard talk about that, it's like that second album. Is it? Are you going to be able to, if you have a hit on the first one, are you going to be able to continue that
yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward? I can see how that could be really, terrifying.
Yeah, exactly, and also because I wanted to change the sound slightly. I was like, "Oh god, I'm already, like, changing things up," and, like, I just got these people on my side. So it was really nerve-wracking, but I think the biggest takeaway that I have from What's Dead and Gone is that it was the first time that I, like, put together a project instead of, like, just piecing together songs that were kind of just going viral. 'Cause that's kind
Mhm.
of how Letters to Myself happened. It was just like I was posting them, and then if they did well, there was more push to put them out. Whereas What's Dead and Gone, I wrote them over, like, a period of, I think, like, a whole year, um, and, like, pieced them together myself in my own time. Like, it was, like, a group of songs that I had, and I pulled them out of this group and decided that they went well together, and I wanted them to tell a story. And I'd never done that before. And I'd never even, like, considered music like that because 'cause I'd always just written songs, not
Yeah, so
project.
there was more like an intention for the
Yeah.
full thing as a project instead of just,
Yeah.
"Here's 100 songs I've written, and these are the 5 that I love the most that I wanna put on here," even
Yeah.
if they might not have anything to do with each other or any through line.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, that
Yeah.
must have been difficult. So, like, did you notice while you were doing it, like, "Oh, okay, these all" like, was it something that you had intention behind, like, after maybe, like, 1 or 2 of them were written? Like, "Oh, like, if I this is the direction I need to go, and this is the vibe of the EP, and this is the message I wanna put out."
I think I still wrote them, like, not really thinking that I was kind of piecing together this thing. But I
Okay.
think because I'd written them within a year of me kind of, like I don't know, there was a lot of experiences within that year, and all of these songs were coming out of that same time period. I think they all were very connected, like, subconsciously, and then it was more of, like, a conscious effort to tie them together when we were producing them, and the lyrics kind of, like I mean, it was half me, like, realizing that a lot of the lyrics were more linked than I thought they were, and half me just kind of being like, "Oh, what?" Um, and I think when we were in the studio recording them, that was definitely, like, the most I've ever guided a project to be in the same kind of sonic world, which I really wanted to, like, do. I wanted to I've obviously collaborated with both of these producers, And I think, yeah, I just wanted to kind of like spearhead this project a bit more and have a bit more of an idea of where I was going.
Hmm.
Um, and I think like that's why I kind of learned most from it, was how to do that and like how to kind of describe what I wanted and describe what I didn't like, and
Hmm. Well, it's a very vulnerable EP as well. I mean, like you said,
Mm.
like the lyrics and everything. And was that something that you found to be like therapeutic? Like, is that helpful to process certain feelings when you write it out like that, or even getting the whole thing out? Was it like, this weight is off me now?
Definitely. I think it was like a combination of like all of those things. And also people were resonating with those stories the most, I think. I think like when I was being the most honest with myself, it was also when people could kind of like listen to it and also be like the most honest with themselves. Um, and so I didn't really think much about its vulnerability, to be honest. I think it just felt right that all of them kind of like, I don't know, they had to be that vulnerable to tell that story.
Hmm.
Um, and it was like, yeah, I don't know. I think I've just gradually found that the songs I like the most are my most honest ones. And they're not the easiest to write, but they like kind of flow the best. Like anytime I feel like I'm telling a story that doesn't feel true to me or what I want to say, I always really struggle with it. And then I always come out of like finish it and I'm like, no. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and that's beautifully put. Where people will listen to it, the ones that you're the most honest to, then they could take a look at themselves and be the most honest. Like,
Mm,
wow, this really resonates with me because I feel the same
yeah.
way. But thank God you said it. You know what I mean? Like it's like these.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of like the like I don't know, the most touching thing that I get is that people are like people thank me for like putting words to their feelings, which
Mhm.
is like such like it's so nice to hear. Um and I just hope I'm doing it right. you know.
Well, I think you are. I love what you're up to. You've released 2 songs since the EP. The most recent one is, uh, "Kiss My Apocalypse." And are
Yeah.
you working towards another body of work? And I wanna hear about that new song that you.
Yeah. We're basically currently working on another project, which is very exciting. The kind of timeline of it, I don't really know yet, to be honest. But it's gonna be the first time that I have like deliberately set aside time for it as opposed to like just piecing it together like as soon as we can kind of thing. I think especially now in this industry, there's such like a push for momentum and for like artists to just constantly be releasing. And
Mhm.
I've found it quite overwhelming. I think at first I was like, oh, this is just how it is. And then like as the second two projects I've kind of like gone through that process, I've realized that I'm like, oh, I would like more time actually to fully think about these things and not rush them. So I'm really excited to take a lot more time with this next project and I don't know, kind of just like live my normal life and like experience normal things outside of the music industry and then come back and be able to tell a new story in
Uh-huh.
this project. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of what I'm really excited about this next one. And it's like half written, but that might change. And like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I think
Yeah.
artists always like swap things out as new ones come in. So
Yeah.
for now, I think it's half written, but that could be so different 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, and Kiss My Apocalypse is my most recent release, yeah, and it was really fun. It was just like a super fun song from the start. And it's the same with Out Loud. Both of those singles are like just standalone singles.
Okay,
Um,
so this won't be a part of that project that you're talking about.
no, no,
Got it.
we came out with What's Dead and Gone, and I was just like writing loads and loads, and I think like there's such a delay on when you can release music that a lot of demos just kind of like get left to die.
Yeah.
And we were just writing these fun songs. And when I say we, I mean my guitarist and my producer Joey. My guitarist Kobe, love him. And we were just continuing to write really fun songs. And I was like, to be honest, these are kind of like the story like ends with the song. Like, why don't we just put them out as singles? And we can kind of mess around with like how we like speak about them, how we like promote them, the cover art. And I was like, why don't we just do it? And so we did. And that's why both of them are like quite different cover art as well. Cause I
I was
wanted,
gonna ask you about that. Yeah. I mean, there's
yeah,
some similarities, I guess, like with just the color and it's like a
yeah.
colored pencil or something that you have on there.
Yeah, I found an artist called Sil, and I haven't met her in person, but she seems really nice. And I just loved her art on Instagram, and I just got in touch, and I was like, "Would you like to do like these two cover arts?" And I just wanted to capture like a visual that you can't get like through photograph. And also I was so tired of my face being the cover art, I'm not gonna lie. I did I did like the whole What's Dead and Gone EP, and I was like, I don't want another picture of my face anymore. And that is like honestly the whole truth of those. And she was really great. She managed to like capture, I think, the vibe of the song and also like everything I kind of wanted to get into a little piece of art quite well. But yeah, they're just standalone singles and they're kind of just made to be fun. I'm like in a period of being like very lovey-dovey because I'm like in a new relationship and
Okay.
like
Love
just
it.
moved in together and it's like really
Con-
sweet. And
Congratulations.
thank you. It's inspiring so many songs. It's
I was gonna
amazing.
ask you because I feel like with What's Dead and Gone was a darker record.
For sure. For
So
sure.
with this new EP might be a little bit more upbeat or a
Yeah.
new
No,
project.
I think definitely. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it was what then and gone was like a period of me just like doing dumb stuff with dumb people, to be honest, and like getting myself hurt and like hurting myself and hurting other people. So I was like, oh, I'm actually so done with that. And then met my beautiful boyfriend. So this like it was just like this really fun period of like writing loads of love songs and like silly love songs as well, because I think the only way I can like describe love in music is in a really weird way. I don't know why. Like you see it in Not a Love Song and I wasn't even
Yeah.
in love then. Uh, so yeah, Kiss My Apocalypse was like just from the get-go so fun to write. I was in with a new writer who I'd never been in with. Her name's Bliss, and then also Luke St. Luna, who I'd previously written with, and like we write like some of my favorite songs together. And it was just like a summer day, and I was like, "Can we just write a really like strange but love song, I guess?" And like use the apocalypse as a way to describe it. And they were so down. And then following that, at first, to be honest, I actually wasn't, I sat on the song for like 3 months, I think, 3, 4 months.
Wow.
And to be honest, that, I wasn't that excited about it at first. And I think on the first day, we just like got the production like slightly wrong. But we ended up bringing in, I was like, why don't we just play loads of live instruments on it? Again, like this was like an experimental single that I was just like trying to do whatever I wanted to do on it.
Hmm.
And we brought in my guitarist, we brought in my drummer, and we brought in a string player that I work with quite often called Jed. And they all just like brought so much to the track. And I think because it was such a collaborative effort, it was like it now the track means like even more than it did before.
Hmm.
So I love that about that song. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, this is great. I just like we just brought like 8 people in together to make a really fun song.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
did. Speaking of like live, you said you wanted more live instruments. You're doing a tour coming up. Well, what May or something like that?
Yeah, I've got my
And you have a
debut.
band joining you, right?
Yeah, it's so exciting. We've had like very few opportunities to bring the band out, and it's like one of my priorities going into the next year that like I just try my very best to bring them along. If I can financially afford it. That's like the basically biggest thing with having a
Sure.
band. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so that will be my debut headline tour, and I'm so excited. I've
That's
like
really exciting.
never done that many dates with my band, which is so fun. Like we've never been on a tour together. We've done like the one-off show where you have to have like 3 rehearsals beforehand because everyone's just slightly forgotten how to play the music. Um, but hopefully, because we have like 4 in a row, it'll just be a good time and we can get into the groove together.
Yeah, 100%. That's amazing. And yeah, and it's a headliner. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this today.
No, thank you for having me, honestly.
This
Like
has been
really,
fun.
thank you. It
Yeah,
was
no, no,
really
no.
nice to see
Anytime.
you.
And when you put out this next project, I would love to have you come back. Um,
Yeah.
but I have one more question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh man. I would say this is I feel like this can change like with different projects, but at least in my experience, and like we did speak about this, just try and be like as authentic to yourself and like the stories you want to tell, like as possible, basically. I think people can tell when you are trying to just get views or like get, a certain amount of attention, and people can tell when you're just trying to tell a story a certain way. And I would say that's the biggest thing that I've found. And it's always something that I try to come back to if I'm ever like getting caught up in all the numbers and like all the like weird bits of the industry that really stress you out. I try and just remember that like I'm getting to be vulnerable and getting to like, I don't know, tell my story in exactly the way I want to loads of people who are willing to listen.
Bringing it backward.